A millionaire caught his maid breastfeeding her baby and fell in love. The New York sky that evening was bathed in pale gold, skyscrapers reflecting the last rays of sunlight. Daniel Carter stepped out of his private elevator, Italian leather shoes echoing against the polished marble floor. He had just returned from a 2-week business trip in Los Angeles, where he closed a real estate deal worth hundreds of millions. Normally, victory would fuel him with pride, but tonight he wanted nothing more than a quiet evening in his penthouse. As the door opened, the familiar sight greeted him. Spacious, sleek, minimalist. Yet instead of the usual silence, he heard an unfamiliar sound. The faint cry of a newborn mingled with a soft lullaby in Spanish. He froze, unsure if he was imagining things. A few steps further, he saw a scene that stopped him cold. On the beige velvet sofa sat Elena Morales, his part-time housekeeper, wrapped in a pink blanket cradling a tiny infant. The baby was nursing, eyes closed, while Elena, her face tense, looked up and met his gaze. "Mr. Carter?" Her voice trembled, dark brown eyes wide with fear. Yellow cleaning gloves still dangled from her wrists, proof that she had been caught in the middle of her work. Time seemed to halt. For 20 years, Daniel had negotiated with ruthless CEOs, battled across boardrooms, survived 2 failed marriages. Yet never had he felt so helpless. A newborn, a young woman, alone, trembling before him. "You have a child," he finally uttered. It wasn't a question. "Her name is Sophia. She's 3 weeks old," Elena replied, lifting her chin with the quiet pride Daniel had once admired during the 2 years she had worked in his home. The apartment, once spotless and silent like a museum, now bore signs of new life. A diaper bag beside the glass table, a portable crib tucked behind the piano Daniel had never touched. "Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?" Elena closed her eyes for a brief moment, then opened them again, her gaze heavy with the exhaustion of carrying responsibilities far too great for her young shoulders. "Because I needed this job, sir. My family in Oaxaca depends on the money I send. My father can no longer farm, and my mother's diabetes medicine grows more expensive every day." The blunt confession shook Daniel. For 2 years, Elena had kept his household running like Swiss clockwork. She arrived at 6 in the morning, left at 6 in the evening, prepared his favorite meals without needing reminders, ironed his shirts exactly the way he liked, kept the plants alive in an apartment where everything else seemed to wither, and yet he had known nothing of her real life. Housekeepers also have the right to maternity leave. He slowly recalled some vague law. Elena gave a bitter laugh. "Maternity leave? I work by the day. No contract, no insurance. If I take 18 weeks off, someone else will have replaced me by the time I come back." Daniel was stunned to realize he had always thought paying her above-average wages was enough, but had never considered her legal or social security. "And the baby's father?" he asked cautiously. "He disappeared the moment he learned I was pregnant, said it wasn't his problem." Elena answered, softly rocking Sophia with a Zapotec lullaby her grandmother had taught her. At that very moment, Daniel's phone buzzed, a message from his lawyer. "Next week there will be an immigration inspection for domestic workers. I hope everything in your household is in order." The timing could not have been worse. Daniel looked at Elena. "We need to talk." She nodded, bracing herself for the worst. She had seen this scene in many other households, the moment when the truth became too complicated, too human for the employer to accept. "I can work and care for her at the same time. I bring the portable crib. She sleeps most of the day, and I only feed her during breaks. I promise she won't be a burden," she said quickly. Daniel looked at her. 26 years old, a single mother carrying an entire family on the back of a cleaning job, now facing the risk of losing everything. A composure that even he had never managed in his greatest business crises. The guest room, he said unexpectedly. "I don't use it. You and Sophia can stay there." "Sir, you can't. That's impossible." "This isn't charity." Daniel cut her off. "It's simply practical. You won't have to travel every day from Xochimilco, and Sophia will be safer." Neither of them said it out loud, but they both knew this decision would change everything. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the vast windows of the penthouse, casting a gentle glow over the once-cold kitchen. Daniel entered, halting in surprise. Elena stood at the granite counter, her dark hair tied back, little Sophia asleep in a sling on her shoulder. The sight transformed the space from a showroom into something resembling a home. "Mr. Carter," Elena murmured, eyes fixed on the coffee machine. "I've thought about your offer last night. It's generous, but you need to understand my situation." Daniel pulled out a chair, studying her carefully. He had spent the night researching labor laws for domestic workers. What he discovered unsettled him. Thousands of women in America worked without contracts, without benefits, without insurance. Elena was one of them. "Tell me your real situation. Don't worry about how I'll react," he replied softly. Elena poured 2 cups of coffee, sliding one toward him. Her movements were precise, but the dark circles beneath her eyes betrayed exhaustion. "I work part-time, no contract, no insurance. When Sophia was born, I had no maternity leave. I went back to work 2 weeks later because I had no choice." Daniel frowned. 2 weeks? Who looked after Sophia then?" "Mrs. Carmen, my neighbor in Queens. She cares for several babies like mine, but I pay her almost half of what I earn." Her words stunned him. While he had been absorbed in profits, projects, and prestige, Elena had been struggling within a system that kept her invisible. It felt like a rude awakening. Elena lifted her gaze, her eyes glowing with determination. "If I stay in your guest room, I don't want it to be charity. I'll pay rent, something fair. More importantly, I want a formal contract. Salary, benefits, like any other employee. If something happens to me, Sophia needs insurance and legal rights." Daniel sat in silence, seeing not just weariness in her eyes, but the pride of a mother who would fight for her child. She wasn't begging, she was demanding fairness. "Why is formality so important to you?" he asked. For the first time that morning, Elena met his eyes directly. "Because of Sophia. She needs a legal place in this society. And there's another reason." Her voice softened. "Sophia's father could come back any time. He never signed her birth certificate, but if he learns my life is more stable now, he could try to use that against me." Daniel gripped his cup, silent. He wasn't an expert in family law, but he knew courts often favored fathers, especially when the mother had no contract, no clear income. The thought made him uneasy, an injustice staring him in the face. Sophia stirred in the sling, making soft sounds. Elena soothed her with practiced motions, humming gently. Daniel watched, realizing Elena was far from weak. She was strong, resilient, fighting for her child against all odds. "Listen to me, Elena." Daniel leaned closer, voice firm. "I'll call my labor attorney today. From now on, you'll have a formal contract, steady pay, insurance, and housing. Not as charity, part of your employment." Elena hesitated, searching his face as if weighing whether to trust this change. "Why are you doing this? Why help me?" Daniel paused. 1,000 reasons came to mind. Guilt, convenience, the way Sophia had turned his apartment warm for the first time in years. But he chose the simplest truth. Because I can, and because it's the right thing to do. In the days that followed, the penthouse transformed in ways Daniel had never imagined. Once cold and designed like a showroom, it now brimmed with signs of life. A crib by the wide window, a basket of tiny toys in the living room. On the kitchen counter, where once only wine and cocktail mixers stood, now rested baby bottles, formula, and soft towels. Daniel, who once demanded order and silence, was surprised to realize he wasn't bothered. In fact, he felt lighter. The sound of Sophia's soft giggles each morning eased something inside him, replacing years of silence with warmth. One evening, coming home earlier than usual, Daniel found Elena sitting on the floor, Sophia in her lap, wide-eyed and following her mother's every move. Elena was singing, swaying gently, a Spanish lullaby, foreign yet soothing. Daniel leaned against the doorway, watching as though intruding on something sacred. Elena looked up, cheeks flushing. "I didn't hear you come in." "That's all right," Daniel smiled. "I didn't want to interrupt. You have a beautiful voice." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "It's just a song my grandmother used to sing to me. I sing it to Sophia to keep the memory alive." Daniel stepped forward, sitting across from them. He looked at Sophia, the baby reaching her tiny hand toward his tie. Carefully, he held the little fingers, and an unfamiliar warmth surged within him. "She's truly special." Elena's gaze softened, though shadows crossed her eyes. "Special, yes, but I'm afraid I can't give her the future she deserves. I only finished high school. I dream of studying early childhood education. I've always been good with children, but to have stability, I need a degree." Her confession startled Daniel. He had never considered that Elena might have dreams beyond surviving. "Have you ever tried?" She shook her head. "Money, time, and now Sophia. Alone, I can't manage it." Daniel said nothing. He thought back to himself 15 years ago, building his real estate empire from nothing. He had luck, opportunities. Elena had neither. Yet he saw a fire in her that not everyone possessed. In the days that followed, Daniel unconsciously changed his routine. He began coming home earlier, excusing it as working remotely. In truth, he wanted to hear Sophia's babbles, to see Elena quietly preparing dinner. One evening, the three of them sat at the same table. Daniel was struck by the sight. The kitchen where he had eaten countless takeout meals alone now felt alive. Elena served simple chicken soup, Sophia laughed in her high chair, and Daniel felt complete. After dinner, he spoke carefully. "Elena, have you ever thought of going back to school? I could help you find a night or online program." She froze, spoon trembling slightly in her hand. "Mr. Carter, thank you, but that's too much. I don't want to owe you more." "It's not about owing, it's opportunity. I believe you deserve more than just this job, and Sophia deserves a mother who can live her dream." Elena held his gaze for a long moment, her eyes glistening, though no tears fell. At last, she nodded gently. "I'll think about it." That night, Daniel lay in his vast bedroom, but for the first time, he didn't feel empty. He realized the change wasn't simply about having a child in the house. It was Elena, young yet unyielding, who had brought something money could never buy: the feeling of family. 2 months passed, and the penthouse had settled into a new rhythm. Daniel had grown accustomed to midnight cries, to the scent of Elena's morning coffee, to Sophia's babbles echoing through the rooms. The invisible bond among the three of them grew stronger each day. But their fragile happiness didn't last long. One weekend evening, just as Daniel hung his coat by the doorbell rang. He frowned. Rarely did anyone come without notice. When he opened it, a stranger stood there, tall, athletic build, worn t-shirt, dark eyes sharp and cold. "I'm looking for Elena Morales," the man said casually, though his gaze was calculating. "My name is Victor Ramirez. I'm Sophia's father." Daniel's chest tightened. He barely managed. "Sophia's father?" From the living room, Elena heard and froze, dropping the cloth in her hands. When she appeared, her face went pale. "Victor?" Her voice broke, arms wrapping tightly around Sophia in a protective shield. Victor walked in uninvited, scanning the luxurious apartment with a mix of awe and greed. "Well, well." My daughter seems to be living better than I thought. Elena faced him, trembling but resolute. She is not yours. You never acknowledged her, never signed her birth certificate. You abandoned us. Victor shrugged, smirking. That can change. I've done my research. A DNA test, a decent lawyer, that's all it takes for the court to recognize my rights. Daniel stood behind, tension thick in the air. Elena, the strong woman he had seen smile with trust, was now the frightened figure from that first day again. "What do you want, Victor?" Elena asked, voice tight. "I want to see my daughter, and I want you to admit I have rights as her father." Then his eyes flicked to Daniel, lips curling. "And who are you? The new boyfriend? Or just the generous benefactor?" Daniel clenched his fists, but kept his tone even. "I own this home, and I suggest you show some respect." Victor chuckled darkly. "Owner, huh? Probably paying for all this. Elena, you've always had a good eye for finding someone to lean on." Elena flushed but held her ground. "If you truly want to see Sophia, we can arrange supervised visits in a public place, but I won't let you use her to manipulate me." His eyes flashed with anger. "Manipulate? I only want what's best for my child. And for that, I think $50,000 a month sounds fair. Call it child support. Considering your new circumstances, it's not too much." The room froze. Daniel's instinct was to reach for his checkbook, but Elena's pleading glance stopped him. This was her fight. "I don't have $50,000, Elena said firmly. "If you want to be a father, do it legally. Prove it with responsibility, not blackmail." Victor laughed, the sound void of warmth. "Very well, let's see what the court says. And think about this, a single mother living with her wealthy employer. How do you think that looks?" Elena's face blanched. He had struck her deepest fear. "You have 1 week," Victor said, heading for the door. "Pay up or see me in court. I already have a lawyer. Get ready to lose your child." When the door closed, Elena collapsed onto the sofa, trembling. Daniel sat beside her, his hand close but not touching. In the days that followed, everything changed noticeably. Elena grew cold and distant. She still did her work diligently, but avoided the conversations that had once begun to feel natural between them. She always closed the door with Sophia the moment her tasks were done. Daniel offered many times to hire a lawyer, even to confront Victor directly, but Elena refused. "This is my problem. I will not turn myself into one of your charity cases." "You're not charity," Daniel objected. "You are." "What?" Elena cut him off. "An employee? A friend? A social project of yours? I need to know before things go too far." That question left them both in silence, because the truth was, neither of them knew exactly what they were to each other. A week later, Victor returned. This time he brought a man in a suit who introduced himself as a lawyer. "Have you decided yet?" Victor dropped into the chair as if it were his own. "I will not pay," Elena said calmly. "But I accept that you may see Sophia under supervision 2 hours a week in a public place." "Supervision?" Victor burst out laughing. "As if I were a criminal? No, Elena, I want joint custody, alternating weekends, shared holidays, and that financial support. Otherwise, we'll see each other in court." The lawyer beside him pulled out a file. "We have already prepared the petition. We are demanding a paternity test, joint custody, and support payments from you." Daniel frowned. "Support payments? To him?" "Exactly." After they left, Elena completely broke down. For the first time, Daniel saw her truly cry, sobs torn from the deepest part of her being. "He's going to take Sophia away from me, and there's nothing I can do to stop it." Daniel sat down beside her, not touching her, but close enough for her to feel his presence. "You can, we can, but we have to be smart." "What do you mean?" "I know the law, Elena. I've fought battles far tougher than this, but I need you to trust me." That night, while Sophia slept peacefully, Daniel made a decision that would change everything. It was time to play strictly by the law, and no one understood the law better than him. Daniel stayed awake the entire night, researching, calling in favors from his connections in the legal world, and poring over documents on the website of Mexico's judicial system. What he discovered brought the first ray of hope after so many dark days. Early in the morning, he found Elena in the kitchen as she was preparing milk for Sophia. "We need to talk." "Sheen." Daniel set a stack of printed papers on the table. Elena looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept at all. Meanwhile, Sophia sat happily in her rocker, babbling away, blissfully unaware of the adult's troubles. "I spent the whole night studying family law," Daniel began, "and we actually have a strong chance of winning." Elena shook her head. "But Daniel, good lawyers cost more than I can ever afford." "I already found someone," he said without hesitation. "Rose Johnson. She's the best family lawyer in the city. I told her our story, and she agreed to meet you this afternoon." "Daniel, I can't let you pay for this. I don't want to become a burden." "This isn't charity." Daniel interrupted softly. "This is self-defense. If Victor wins, Sophia will be taken away. And He paused, startled by the force of his own emotions. "I don't want the two of you to leave." For the first time in days, Elena looked directly at him. She saw not just a generous employer, not just a man who solved problems for her, but someone else, someone closer. "What are we doing, Daniel?" she asked quietly. "This isn't just about work anymore, is it?" Before Daniel could answer, Sophia burst into tears, louder and fiercer than during her last fever. Elena immediately picked her up, worry etched across her face. "She's hotter than before." Without a moment's hesitation, they rushed Sophia straight to Angela's hospital. The doctor recognized them immediately. "This time the infection is more severe. She'll need intravenous antibiotics and 48 hours of hospitalization for monitoring." Seeing little Sophia lying on the hospital bed, an IV needle in her tiny arm, Elena nearly broke down. She never left her daughter's side, dozing off in the chair next to the bed, refusing every offer of help from Daniel. "This is my responsibility," she repeated again and again. On the second night, when Sophia finally began to stabilize and Elena fell asleep from sheer exhaustion, Daniel sat quietly watching her. It was then that he fully acknowledged the truth he had long avoided. It wasn't just that he didn't want them to leave. It was because he had fallen in love. Love for Sophia, yes, but above all, for Elena, for her resilience, her dignity, the way she had transformed his cold apartment into a true home. The day Sophia was discharged, as Daniel carried mother and child back home, his phone buzzed. The voice on the other end was tense. "Daniel, the tax bureau is investigating some of your company's transactions. Your former partner was arrested in Miami. Your name showed up in the documents." Daniel froze. He had cut ties with that partner months ago, suspicious of shady dealings. Apparently, it hadn't been soon enough. He sank onto the sofa, running his hands through his hair. Elena watched, worry etched on her face. What happened? He told her everything, the possible freezing of assets, the looming collapse of his company, the tarnishing of his name. "I might lose everything," he finished hoarsely. Elena was silent, then whispered, "And what does that mean? For me and Sophia?" Daniel looked up, heart tightening. He wanted to say, "You should find someplace safer." But when he saw Elena clutching Sophia, fear shining in her eyes, what came out instead was, "It means we'll have to fight harder. But I want you to stay. Not because I need a housekeeper, because I need family. I need you and Sophia." Elena froze, tears brimming. "Mr. Carter." "Daniel, what are you saying?" Daniel leaned closer, sitting across from her. "I've been lying to myself too long. I care about you both more than I ever thought possible. I don't want to be just a landlord or benefactor. I want to be the man of this family." Her heart pounded wildly. Part of her wanted to believe, another part feared. "I feel something too. But Daniel, my life has never been easy. I'm afraid one day you'll see us as nothing but a burden." He gently took her hand. "It won't be easy, but I promise one thing. I won't walk away. I've failed at marriage before, chosen wrong paths. But this time, I choose with my heart. I love you, Elena, and I love Sophia as if she were my own." Elena burst into tears, but this time they were tears of release. She didn't answer right away, only gripped his hand tightly, allowing herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, a new family was beginning to take shape. But just as hope began to bloom, life reminded them it was never simple. Sophia fell ill again, her fever spiking higher than before. Within hours, they were back at the hospital, fear gripping both of them. And when she finally recovered, when her smile returned, a new storm arrived. A letter from a law firm. As Victor had promised, he had filed suit, demanding a DNA test, visitation rights, and even monthly support payments. Elena trembled as she held the letter. Daniel stood beside her, eyes firm. "We're not letting him win." Their first meeting with Attorney Rose took place in a bright office. The woman, dressed in a navy suit, spoke with authority yet compassion. She listened as Elena recounted the lonely months of pregnancy, Victor's disappearance, and the struggles of raising Sophia alone. "That's crucial," the lawyer said. "His abandonment during pregnancy and Sophia's early months is powerful evidence he never intended to be a father. We'll use that." Elena exhaled, some weight lifting from her shoulders. Then she frowned. "But me living here, with Daniel, they could use that against me." Rose nodded. "They'll try. But remember, the court cares about stability. And you have what Victor doesn't: legal employment, a contract, safe housing, health insurance, and a support system. We'll prove Sophia's best environment is with her mother." Daniel added firmly, "If needed, I'll make the contract and all records public to prove Elena is a legitimate employee. Nothing to hide." The lawyer smiled. "That transparency will be our greatest weapon." The following weeks were tense. With his lawyer's support, Victor kept sending threats and demands. He insisted on weekly visits, even hinted at joint custody. Elena often broke down, fearing the court would favor a father simply because of natural rights. But Daniel was always there, reminding her, "You're not alone. We're in this together." At one mediation session, Victor smirked at her. "You think you can keep me from my child? The court will see the truth. A single mother living with her wealthy boss. What do you think they'll believe?" Elena's hands clenched, but this time she didn't bow her head. Beside her, Daniel's hand rested on the back of her chair, a silent anchor. Their lawyer spoke up, clear and strong. "What the court will see is a mother who has cared for her child from the very first day, while the father disappeared. What the court will see is the stability she has built: employment, housing, insurance, education. That's what matters." The words rang out, leaving Victor momentarily shaken. Back home after the session, Elena held Sophia close, tears streaming, yet these were tears of relief. "Daniel, I never thought I'd have someone stand by me like this." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, voice steady. "This isn't just standing by you. This is my family, too." Elena looked up, hesitant but luminous. And in that moment, she realized, though the battle was hard, for the first time in her life, she wouldn't fight it alone. The final court ruling came with victory for Elena. The judge dismissed Victor's bid for custody, granting him only supervised visits once a month. The reasoning was clear. his past abandonment, unstable finances, and the stability Elena had created for Sophia. As they left the courthouse, Elena held her daughter, tears streaming, tears of joy. Daniel walked beside her, his hand on her back, a quiet assurance. From now on, you'll never fight alone again. Spring brought transformation to Daniel's penthouse. The guest room was renovated into a private space for Elena and Sophia. Yet before long, it no longer felt like a guest room. It became a home within a home. Daniel began spending more time at home. He installed extra lights, hung paintings, even bought wooden toys for Sophia. In the evenings, the three of them sat together. Daniel read fairy tales in his slightly awkward voice, Elena smiling beside him. Sophia drifted to sleep in her mother's arms, while Daniel felt a peace he had never known. One evening, after Sophia was asleep, Daniel approached Elena in the kitchen. Warm light from the pendant lamp shimmered over her hair. "Elena," he said slowly, "I want to make everything official, not just contracts or papers. Us. I want you and Sophia here, not as employees, but as family." Elena froze, her heart racing. She had dreamed of this moment, yet still couldn't believe it had arrived. "Daniel, are you sure? My life isn't simple. This baby, all the burdens behind me." Daniel interrupted, eyes steady. "I've never been more sure. I love you, Elena. I love Sophia. I want to be her legal father, and if you'll allow me, I want you as my wife." Tears streamed down Elena's cheeks. For the first time in her life, she no longer felt alone, no longer saw the future as endless struggle. She whispered, "Yes?" The wedding was simple, held in a small Brooklyn garden. Elena wore a modest white dress, Daniel a navy suit. Sophia, by then toddling, was the sweetest little flower girl. When the officiant asked, Daniel declared he was adopting Sophia as his legal daughter. Applause erupted, and Elena wept in his arms. Life shifted after the wedding. Elena enrolled in part-time courses in early childhood education, studying while caring for her child. Daniel restructured his work, delegating more to his managers to spend time with family. A year later, they welcomed their first son, Lucas Carter. The home, once filled only with quiet footsteps, now overflowed with children's laughter. At times, Elena felt exhausted juggling studies, work, and two little ones. But every time Daniel held both Sophia and Lucas in his arms, she knew the struggles were worth it. There were conflicts, of course, money, parenting choices, cultural differences. Elena sometimes felt out of place at corporate events. Daniel sometimes failed to grasp the pressures of her Latin family background. Yet each time they argued, they sat down, learned to listen, learned to forgive. One evening, after the children were asleep, Elena leaned against Daniel's shoulder and whispered, "I never thought my life could change like this, from a struggling single mother to having a real home." Daniel squeezed her hand. "And I never thought I could find meaning in something so simple. You and the kids. You are my life." In the golden glow of their apartment, they knew a new home had truly been built, not perfect, but real and filled with love. 5 years had passed since the court battle ended and the small wedding in Brooklyn took place. The Carter Morales family's life had changed in many ways, yet it held a rhythm of warmth that seemed almost unreal. That morning, laughter echoed through their spacious Brooklyn apartment. Sophia, now 7, her hair tied in 2 braids, ran to the window, shouting, "Mom! Dad's home!" Elena stepped out of the kitchen, wiping her apron, smiling. Inside the room, Lucas, 4 years old, was building blocks, glancing up at his sister from time to time. Elena's hand rested on her slightly rounded belly, their 3rd child growing inside her. The door opened, and Daniel entered, holding a bouquet of tulips and a small box. Sophia threw herself into his arms, Lucas toddling behind. Elena watched, her heart swelling. "More flowers?" she teased softly. Daniel kissed her cheek. "Flowers for you." a gift for Sophia. Today isn't just her birthday. It's 5 years since we became a family. They called it Family Day, the day Daniel opened his door and found Elena with little Sophia in his penthouse. What began as an accident had become the very heart of their lives, a reminder that the best families are sometimes the ones we never plan for. Sophia's birthday party was simple, yet joyful. A 3-tier cake made together as a family, rich with chocolate and strawberries. They invited close friends, a few neighbors, and Elena's parents flew in from Mexico. The grandparents hugged Sophia tightly, tears brimming as they saw their granddaughter thriving in so much love. While guests chatted, Elena sat beside Daniel on the balcony. Brooklyn stretched before them under the sunset glow. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Opening your door to me and Sophia that day?" Daniel squeezed her hand. "I only regret one thing, not realizing sooner that you were the family I'd been searching for all along." Elena rested her head on his shoulder, eyes shimmering. "These 5 years. We've gone through so much. Arguments, struggles, even loss. Yet we're still here." Daniel nodded. "And I would choose you, choose our children again and again. Not out of duty, but out of love." That night, after the guests had left and the children were asleep, Daniel and Elena sat together. Sophia clutched her new doll. Lucas curled beneath his blanket, smiling in dreams. Elena's hand rested on her belly, where a new life stirred. "Who do you think the baby will look like?" she whispered. Daniel smiled, placing his hand over hers. "I only hope the baby will be like you, strong, kind. If it's a girl, may she have Sophia's smile. If it's a boy, may he have Lucas's bright eyes." Elena's throat tightened, eyes glistening. "I never imagined I'd ever have all of this." Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "You deserve all of it. Our family deserves it." In that moment, amidst the calm of Brooklyn, they knew. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they had built a foundation strong enough to last, a home made of trust, sacrifice, and love. Theirs was a family not born from perfect plans, but from an unexpected beginning, nurtured through struggle, strengthened by trust, and bound by a choice, to love each other again and again forever.